This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology. The images are for illustration purposes only. Yunxiao grabbed Xiahou Jian and went to a teleportation array in Windfall City. He paid the primordial stones and said, "To the Blood God Palace." What? The hand of the person in charge of the teleportation trembled as he took the primordial stones. He looked at it and suddenly exclaimed, "Eh? Sword young master, why is it you? Isn't it the time for the old master's great joy?" Xiahou Jian's face was as purple as a pig's liver. He said angrily, "What does the old man's happiness have to do with you? Do your job well, don't ask what you shouldn't ask, and don't care about what you shouldn't care about. This young master is going to the Blood God Palace. Where is your service attitude? Don't you understand the principle of customer supremacy? If you don't work hard today, I'll make you work hard to find a job tomorrow." The person in charge's mouth was wide open. He didn't know what was going on, so he could only nod continuously and quickly handle the teleportation. He couldn't afford to offend Xiahou Jian. In his heart, he was cursing Xiahou's entire family. He didn't even let off Xiahou Yuanming's newly married concubine, and even fantasized about her. Yunxiao patted Xiahou Jian on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Kid, you're quite eloquent. You're a manager." Xiahou Jian pulled a long face. He tried his best to smile, but it was uglier than a bitter gourd. The two of them entered the teleportation formation. As the light flickered, their bodies gradually dimmed and they disappeared. The Blood God Palace was not far from Windfall City, but even with Yunxiao's cultivation base, it would take at least 7 or 8 days for a warrior to fly there. No one would want to delay for so long. After a while, the two of them appeared in a small town. People were coming and going, and it was even more lively than Windfall City. "This is Swan and I," Yunxiao said in surprise. A strange expression appeared on Xiahou Jian's face as he carefully asked, "Is this your first time here?" "Maigu Town? Such a strange name, Ingluo." "Oh, right." Yunxiao pondered. "Is this the place where the bones of the eastern region were buried?" Xiahou Jian smiled bitterly. "The burial ground is very famous, all right? How could you not know about it? Could it be someone from another region?" When he saw Yunxiao's face darken, he quickly slapped his own mouth and said, "I was too talkative. The place where the bones are buried is said to be a very famous battlefield in ancient times, and tens of thousands of people have died there. There are many treasures inside, and there are even Tier 9 mystic stars." He gave Yunxiao a strange look and said with a wry smile, "The stone tablet that you took away should be a 9th tier profound armament, and it also came from this burial place. Even if it's not to search for treasures, it's still an excellent spiritual mountain and treasured land. Many people travel thousands of miles just to cultivate there, and the Blood God Palace is the strongest sect that controls this burial place." Xiahou Jian raised his chin slightly as he spoke, a sense of honor appearing on his face. He thought that Yunxiao was from an outsider, so he did not know the power of the Blood God Palace. It was understandable that he had offended him, but now, after listening to his story, he should have retreated. But he was immediately disappointed. Yunxiao did not look shocked at all, and even the slightest ripple appeared in his eyes. "Oh. That must be a place with extremely dense spiritual energy. The Blood God Palace is home to such a precious place. No wonder it's so powerful." "But," Yunxiao said thoughtfully, "it's really magnanimous of us to let outsiders enjoy our own spiritual mountains and precious land. You really don't know anything, do you?" Xiahou Jian smiled bitterly. The burial place did not belong to any sect because it had an extremely important position. Therefore, hundreds of years ago, the Red Moon City had decided to hand the burial place over to the Blood God Palace in the Eastern Region Alliance Conference. The benefit was that the resources inside could be used as they pleased. However, this had also caused dissatisfaction among many sections. Everyone fought over this beautiful task. Thus, the Blood God Palace came up with such a rule. Anyone could enter to cultivate and search for treasures as long as they paid a certain amount of vitality stones. However, the treasures obtained must be sold to the Blood God Palace first. My second uncle obtained that jade tablet and was reluctant to take it out. That's why the Blood God Palace came to hunt him down. Yun Shao sneered. Come to kill me? Weren't you the one who leaked the information and betrayed the family? Xiahou Jian's face reddened as he stammered, I'm actually doing this for the good of the clan. I'm taking the initiative to make up for my mistakes. Yun Shao pondered for a moment and said to himself, if that's the case, the Blood God Palace does have some power. I only know that their palace master is called the Blood God, but I don't know how high his cultivation is. Do you know? The Blood God is a title given to a palace master. Anyone who becomes a palace master will be called the Blood God. As for the cultivation of the current Blood God, I think he should be at least a 9 stars martial emperor. Xiahou Jian said with a smile. Yun Shao rolled his eyes at him, his undisguised sarcasm making Xiahou Jian's face burn. He really didn't know, but he was too embarrassed to say that he didn't know, so he just made it up. If there's a 9 stars martial emperor, Yun Shao said lightly, unless it's one of those reclusive experts, there's no way I wouldn't know him. Since I'm not familiar with the scion of the Blood God, it means that he hasn't reached the level that I'm paying attention to. Let's go. No matter what his cultivation level is, he'll know soon. Without looking back, Yun Shao walked toward the huge building in the distance, which was vaguely visible in the vast spirit qi. What? Xiahou Jian's heart jumped. He felt his hands turn cold as he hurriedly followed. He actually wanted to escape, but when he thought of the other party's lightning transformation technique, it was impossible for him to escape. It was better for him to be more honest. After walking for a while, Yun Shao picked up Xiahou Jian and flew into the mountains. Soon, they arrived above the Blood God Palace. That's the main hall. Xiahou Jian pointed at the tallest building and said proudly, I was granted the honor of being a disciple of the Blood God Palace in the main hall. We'd better hurry down, it's too conspicuous to stand here. It'll be troublesome if the palace's experts find us. Even a fool in the main hall can see where they hide their treasures, Yun Shao said coldly. Where are they hiding their treasures? I'm just a new disciple, Xiahou Jian said with a bitter smile. How would I know the location of such an important place? Oh. So you're useless now? Yun Xiao's face grew cold. Xiahou Jian was shocked, and a chill ran up his spine. He hurriedly said, Don't kill me. As long as you don't kill me, I'm willing to do anything. I'll even pick up the soap for you. After hearing that, Yun Shao picked him up and threw him down. Xiahou Jian was suddenly alarmed. He realized that all of his meridians had been sealed at some point in time, and he could not summon any yuan qi. His expression immediately changed. He had fallen from a height of 10,000 meters. If he fell like this, he would be crippled even if he did not die. Just as he was panicking and secretly praying that he would fall into a tree instead of directly falling to the ground. Suddenly, his body collided with an invisible force. A huge force gathered. Xiahou Jian didn't even have time to shout before his entire body shattered into pieces, turning into dust forever. Humph, there's indeed a mountain protecting formation. What should we do? Yun Shao patted his forehead in distress and fell into deep thought. Who dares to touch the great mountain protecting formation? Could it be that life is not as you wish and you want to die? This time, I can let you have your way. A cold voice came from below. Immediately after, a red light flashed and a red figure gradually appeared in front of him. Yun Shao was taken aback. The voice belonged to someone he knew. When the bloody shadow showed its face, it was Chao Yaxing, who was in Mount Meru. You're Li Yun Shao, the Baihin. Chao Yaxing also recognized him in an instant. After a brief moment of shock, his eyes narrowed as he coldly said, I didn't expect you to have advanced to the rank of martial honor. Is it because you have the spiritual energy of Yanwu? Yun Shao was taken aback as well. The cultivation technique of the Blood God Palace is indeed evil. Even if you can fly, it's impossible for you to be at the peak of martial honor. Could it be that you've drunk the blood of a true spirit? The aura that Chao Yaxing exuded was no longer the same as before. He coldly said, "You don't need to know about this. Why have you come to my blood god palace?" A strange look appeared in his eyes. He licked his dry lips and grinned. "I've been thinking about the few treasures you took from Mount Meru." The aura on his body grew stronger and stronger, and the entire sky turned a light red color, suffused with a trace of the smell of blood, making people extremely uncomfortable. I heard that the Blood God Palace has a large piece of breathing earth in Mount Meru." Yunxiao did not stand on ceremony and went straight to the point. Chao Yaxing was stunned for a moment, then he sneered, "Don't tell me you're here to steal the expanding earth from the Blood God Palace." Yunxiao smiled slyly and said, "You're so smart. You guessed it right at once. The Blood God Palace is too big. It's not easy to find it. I don't want to alert too many people. I definitely can't defeat the Blood God." "This joke isn't funny at all," Chao Yaxing said coldly. "Because it's not a joke," Yunxiao said with a faint smile. "If you tell the truth to people nowadays, they will think you're joking." Chao Yaxing felt like he was being looked down on, and he was a little angry. He said coldly, "I think you're out of your mind. Do you want me to smack the water out of your head first?" "As long as you point me in the right direction," Yunxiao said with a smile. "I'll do as I please." Chao Yaxing's pupils contracted, and as if he suddenly thought of something, his expression changed drastically. "Are you really here for the breathing earth?" "Of course." Yunxiao's face turned serious, and he no longer looked like he was joking. Chao Yaxing couldn't help but laugh out loud. He was so angry that he laughed instead. "I always thought you were a talent, but I didn't expect you to have a flaw in your intelligence. In this case, how can I be at ease leaving the treasures in Mount Meru with you? Let me keep them all." With a wave of his hand, a blood flag rose into the air and fluttered in the wind. The entire sky suddenly changed color, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a sea of blood. Yunxiao still stood there with a smile on his face. After he had advanced to the rank of martial honor, his all-powerful aura of the past had returned. With so many trump cards in his hand, fewer and fewer people in the world could kill him. The blood flag fluttered in the air, and Chao Yaxing sneered, "Your expressionless face is exactly the same as when you were in Mount Meru. I hate it. Today, I can finally trample him flat and relieve my worries." Yunxiao laughed. "It seems that you have a lot on your mind." "I have to admire your calmness," Chao Yaxing sneered. "If I refine you into my blood flag, I'm sure its power will increase greatly. Since you've become a stepping stone on my path to the peak, I should have no regrets in this life." His hands quickly formed a series of hand seals, and the blood flag exploded with a loud bang. A blood slave slowly emerged from the sea of blood. Its face was ferocious and its eyes were pitch black and empty. The aura on its body had actually risen to the level of a one-star martial supreme. "My blood slave is pretty good, right? I have the same cultivation as you, can I eat you? I'm looking forward to it." Chao Yaxing had a smug look on his face, as if he was a cat toying with a mouse. He pointed his finger, and the blood slave quickly roared and charged forward. Other than the fact that it did not have a domain, its attack was a genuine 8 Desolation Realm attack. Boom. When the blood slave's punch hit the air, a cloud of blood mist exploded. Yunxiao dodged in a flash, leaving afterimages behind as he dodged in the air and kept retreating. The smile on Yunxiao's face did not fade as he said loudly, "You're also a martial honor now, not a little kid. Why do you still like to play such boring games? Act like an adult." He raised his hand, and his fist turned into a green lightning bolt that struck down. Bang! A bolt of lightning struck the blood slave's body and exploded. Half of its body was blown away. It wailed in the blood sea, but it quickly recovered. It was as if the surrounding blood sea world could provide endless power. Chao Yaxing's expression changed, and a hint of vigilance flashed across his face. The power of lightning was one of the nemesis of his blood art. "No wonder you're so fearless. It turns out that you've mastered the power of lightning. However, the difference in strength between the two of you is too great. No matter how much you try to restrain it, you'll still be a mantis trying to stop a car. If you think that this move is not satisfying enough, then try this. He shouted and waved his hands. With a bang 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 sound, clouds of blood mist burst out from the sea of blood and condensed into blood slaves. There were 9 of them, and each of them was at the martial supreme realm. The 10 blood slaves, who were all martial supremes, roared and surrounded Yunxiao. Their auras were so strong that Yunxiao's skin slowly began to turn blood red. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of Yunxiao's mouth as he said, "You really haven't improved. I'm so disappointed." The heavenly eye on his forehead suddenly opened, and a strong wind power blew out. It was controlled in his palm and slowly rotated. A tornado suddenly formed and became bigger and bigger. After advancing to the rank of martial honor, Yunxiao's control over the power of these elements had become stronger. A strong wind whistled in his hands and kept blowing in all directions. He clenched his fingers, and the eye of the tornado was suddenly suppressed. Its height suddenly shrank sharply, spreading out like a whirlpool on the surface of the water, cutting through layers of space like sharp blades. "Let's try my newly invented technique, Great Windmill." Yunxiao laughed. The sound of the wind in his hand became more and more piercing, like foam scratching glass. Chao Yaxing's eardrums hurt, but what shocked him even more was that wherever the strong wind passed, it was mercilessly torn apart. The 10 martial supreme blood slaves were cut into pieces before they could even attack. The wind did not stop, growing stronger and stronger, and the entire sea of blood began to become unstable. Damn it! A burst of anger welled up in Chao Yaxing's heart. He had been suppressed by Yunxiao when he was at Mount Meru, and now that he had advanced to the peak of martial honor at a godlike speed, he should have been able to easily crush his little companions back then, but they were still suppressed by Yunxiao as if he were playing with them. This made his heart burn with anger. 100,000 flags to slay the Yama. Chao Yaxing flew up into the air, grabbed the blood god flag that was waving in the sky, and turned it into a saber before he slashed it at Yunxiao. Under the surging force, the sea of blood was split into 2 in an instant, surging violently. I'm not interested in playing with you anymore, because you've already lost your qualification." Yunxiao's eyes turned cold as he pointed out 2 fingers. 2 northern heaven cold star swords shot out and formed a double sword array in the air. In an instant, the sword chi swept across the sky, leaving no filth in its path. The sword slashed at the blood flag, sending out waves of spirit pressure that covered the sky like a spider web. What's going on? Chao Yaxing's heart trembled, and his eyes were filled with shock. His blood god's flag began to crack under the sword power, and drops of blood essence turned into beads and dissipated from inside. However, the sword chi of his opponent not only did not dissipate, but instead, it was getting stronger and stronger as it entered the flag, trying to destroy it completely. Damn it, this doesn't make sense. Chao Yaxing gritted his teeth and poured all his power into the blood god's flag. The blood-red light suddenly brightened and shook out the sword chi, but it was already very difficult. The blood god's flag was what he wanted to cultivate, and if it was damaged, the consequences would be unimaginable. He hurriedly used all his strength to shake off the sword pattern formation and retreated hundreds of meters. As Chao Yaxing retreated in defeat, the blood-red light that filled the sky was also retracted back into the blood god flag, and the sky returned to normal. Chao Yaxing's face was pale, and the flag in his hand had become very pale. There were also a lot of cracks on the flag, and it had been destroyed. He gritted his teeth and said, "What profound level weapon is this? Don't tell me it's 2 9th-tier profound armaments." He was extremely jealous. At a glance, he could tell that the 2 swords were extraordinary, and they were not taken out of Mount Meru by Yunxiao, but by those in Mount Meru. Oh my god, how many treasures did this kid have? Yunxiao smiled faintly and said, "I remember that you also got a good sword in Mount Meru. Why? Did you hand it over to the organization? I don't think you're that kind of selfless person." Chao Yaxing's face flickered. Among the several treasures in Mount Meru that day, Yunxiao was the only one who had taken the biggest share. Luo Qingyun had snatched a long spear, Su Qing had obtained a mirror, and he had seized a sharp sword. He had never mentioned it to anyone, but had refined it silently by himself, which had now become his greatest trump card. But at this moment, he was hesitant. It was absolutely unwise to expose his trump card in the sky above Blood God Palace, and judging from Kong's double sword diagram, he might not be able to suppress Yunxiao even if he used his sharp sword. Moreover, this man had always been cunning and had many trump cards, but he had not seen him use any of the tricks he had in Mount Meru. A sense of powerlessness suddenly welled up in Chao Yaxing's heart. He had thought that he was well-deserved to be the leader of the younger generation, and that he did not take those famous young experts seriously. But when he found that an unknown Li Yunxiao had left him completely helpless, his former pride had vanished in an instant. Humph, you do have some skill. However, you offended the Blood God Palace today, not me. I have no reason to fight you to the death. Someone will naturally come to deal with you. After he calmed down, he put away the Blood God flag and stood with his brother in his arms. It's okay to tell you about the breathing earth. It's in the hands of my master's clone of Blood God. If you're so capable, go and take it. Oh. You're that kind? Yunxiao frowned slightly. Judging from Chao Yaxing's expression, he did not seem to be lying. I wonder how strong the Blood God is. You really want to go? Chao Yaxing sneered. My master was already a 5-star martial emperor 5 years ago. He has been in closed-door cultivation for the past few years, and no one has talked about his cultivation for a long time. I think he's at least a 6-star martial emperor if he's not 7 or 8 stars. Do you really want to snatch the treasure from a 6-star martial emperor? Yes, 6-star and 7-star. It is indeed a little troublesome. Yunxiao fell into deep thought. At present, the strongest person in his team was undoubtedly Mo Xiaochuan, but even Mo Xiaochuan was only a 4-star. Even if he was heaven-defying, he could only challenge a 5-star at most. The gap between each level of martial supreme was even greater. In Songyue City, Mo Xiaochuan and Halian Xiaohuang were no match for Su Danhe even when they joined forces, and Su Danhe was only a peak 5-star martial supreme. Humph, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Here comes your trouble. Be prepared to be buried in the Blood God Palace. Chao Yaxing sneered. As soon as the mountain protecting array was activated, more than a dozen figures flew up, and all their divine senses fell on Yunxiao. Each of them was filled with a monstrous murderous aura and extremely filthy, and they looked extremely ferocious and ugly. Brother Yixing, I always thought you were ugly, Yunxiao said in surprise. I didn't expect you to be a beautiful man in the sect. No wonder you've been staying in a filthy place like the Blood God Palace. It turns out that you can find confidence in your appearance. The Blood God Palace's cultivation technique was a collection of all the filth in the world. Not only did it distort one's soul, but it also distorted one's physical body. Li Yunxiao, do you know that your confidence and calmness make me hate you? Chao Yaxing said angrily through gritted teeth, I really want to step on your dead face with the sole of my shoe. The other's courage to look down on the others, his wisdom in the face of danger, and his calm temperament were all what he wanted to pursue. These qualities that should have belonged to him had appeared on his opponent, making him extremely angry and resentful. Elder Chao, who is this man? Do you know each other? Among the dozens of people, a peak martial venerable asked with a frown. His eyes were filled with killing intent. I don't really know him, Chao Yaxing snorted. I only know his name. I'll have to trouble Elder Yu to help me deal with this. Oh. With Elder Chao's strength, do you need me to do such a small thing? Elder Yu's face revealed a suspicious look. Obviously, he was not a stupid person. Chao Yaxing looked at him indifferently and said, although this person only has the cultivation of a 1-star martial supreme, he has some hidden cards that are quite difficult to deal with. I can't bear to see him die here, but he trespassed my Blood God Palace and violated the rules. He'll die without a doubt. I hope that Elder Yu and the other members of the Elder Council can solve my problem.